Hi, this is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and today we're going for a ride and a chat. So, one of the things that I keep getting asked in the last couple of weeks or so is about past lives. And several people that I know have younger children. I don't mean like super young, like 10 to like 18 years of age, and all of a sudden they are starting to have like very bizarre dreams. And a lot of times what they're telling their parents is that like in the dream something happens and they pass. And I was like, okay, that's all past life stuff. And they're like, because they keep freaking out that they're gonna die or something like that. And I said, it's probably because they're only seeing, you know, most people passing can be like a very traumatic thing. You know, it's one of those, one of them was in a war and got like cut with a sword. One of the other ones, like, was climbing up something and fell and hurt themselves and then ended up dying. So that's kind of the crazy part about it, is so they're like only focusing on that part, but there's so much more information out there than just this one part of that past life. And that's where it's kind of fun to kind of really focus in on your kids and kind of like, okay, what other information was there? What other information that came through on, you know what I'm saying, in your dream? And keep pressing them, because a lot of times, like, they may not have had that in the dream, but they have the information. If they're dreaming about it, they have the information. It's like, it's downloaded in there somewhere. So you just need to kind of like, okay, so tell me something else about that lifetime. What were you wearing when you passed? When did you buy that outfit? Or when did you get that outfit? Or whatever it is. And so kind of keep going back. And a lot of times they can figure out some of their past life stuff by just asking them questions. All of us have that in us. We all have that wisdom within us. Yet I will tell you that most people don't really connect to it. Kids are probably more connected than most adults. So that's why it's important to kind of like ask them about it. The information's there. As an adult, you really do usually have to get into a pretty good deep meditation to be able to see your past lives or get past life information coming forward. So that's just one of those, okay. But I usually teach in my classes, so not everybody sees the same amount when they meditate, but I will tell you that most people see something, or they kind of get a deeper understanding. So even if they're not like actually seeing the images, they might be hearing information, or kind of like, how did I feel in that life? And so it's kind of like, was that a good life? Was it an easy life? Was it a hard life? One where you had to work really hard, or one where a lot of things were just going on turmoil-wise in the world, and so it's kind of like unsettling in that. Several people I've talked to, I want to say in the last couple of years, were soldiers during the fall of Rome. And so that's been kind of like, wow, this is like really overwhelming. And this is like, whoa, oh my gosh. Yeah, it can be. And that can just be a life that it was a little bit harder, or a little bit more like, don't know how to deal with this. And it's like the collapse of a country, you know what I'm saying, for a period of time as it kind of like shrinks back small again. But that's just one of those like interesting ones. Past lives usually also come through with sometimes the illness that you have in this life started in a previous life. A lot of times things that you didn't think that are things that your fears, kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with snakes, or I can't deal with like heights, or I can't deal with anything like rejection, can't deal with someone not loving me, or whatever else. That usually stems, not always, but I would say 90% of the time, usually stems from a past life. So you can get that information in a past life and be like, oh my gosh, that is like crazy weird, because I've always been afraid of like someone cheating on me, or someone not accepting me, or whatever else. I think a lot of witches during the witch trials and stuff like that, because they didn't feel accepted then, come through now, and they're always expecting someone not to accept them because they didn't accept them. It's like, what you're doing is weird. Sorry. So that can come through in a lot of different ways. And even though only a few witches died, only a few people passed, a lot of people felt like not accepted and kind of like, I have to hide who I really am to be accepted by the group, or that something bad's going to happen. Well, you know, your friend just got killed or whatever else. And so, yeah, that is a truthful way, like it could be something that happens. So, you know, or a legitimate fear in that life, but in this life it may not be, but you just keep like, I just feel like, you know, I need to be accepted. And a lot of times people like that will end up being like super people pleasers. Like, I will do whatever it takes to please everybody, and in what's going on around me. Like, I need to please everybody. I need to please, I need to please, I need to please. So that can be one of those like interesting information ones. So that can kind of give you some deeper insight into things around you and things that are going on and things that are changing around you. Like I said, usually legitimate fears, you know, things that you're really afraid of, like claustrophobia, usually denotes that someone who was imprisoned in a previous life. Doesn't mean you did it. I'm just saying, like, you were imprisoned in a previous life and you couldn't get out. That usually also comes along with a deep-seated fear against like rats, roaches, or bugs, because usually down in the basements or underneath the castles or whatever else is where they had the jails or the jail cells or whatever else. And so that's where a lot of people like got afraid of that, because there's a lot of roaches and a lot of bugs and not being able to get out, that sort of thing. And so that's just one of those like quirky, interesting kind of like, okay, where did this come from? Yep, that's it. So if you have a fear that I haven't talked about, I'm going to talk about a few more, but if you have some fears, like this video, share it, and literally comment on it. Like, tell me what your fear is, and I can tell you usually where that fear comes in from, because that's like an interesting one. One of the things that I've been dealing with, a couple of them, I would say in the last few weeks or so, is people that had a previous life in China, when the emperors would have like concubines and have like a whole bunch of concubines, like a whole bunch of them in one area. So it's almost like I have to be, to get noticed by the king, I have to be, because the concubines that had children by him were usually more honored, they got more privileges, they got better, I don't want to say like better food, because everybody got like the same amount of food, but like you might get a bigger house or a bigger place, that sort of thing. So it's kind of like they're looking for that approval, thinking that it's going to make them like a better life in their life. And a lot of times those are the people that are willing to kind of amend or modify their bodies in some ways. So you'll see a lot of women who have augmented their bodies, you know, tummy tucks, butt lifts, enhancing the chest, you know, boob job, whatever you want to call it. All of those usually come in from that kind of, where I have to, you know what I'm saying, or that person has to like fight for recognition and wanting to be there, you know, like the privileged, more acceptable, or whatever that is. So I think that's kind of like one of those interesting, quirky, like, okay, never thought of it that way. Trying to think. A lot of times people will have like this almost like this calling to work with animals, and usually that denotes someone who trained horses. You think of like Rome, those horse soldiers, those horses had to be trained to be able to sit there while they're, you know, fighting with their swords. They had to like be able to sit there and kind of like in the West, like had to be able to take like shots being fired around them without freaking out or anything else. So someone who trained or raised horses, it will be one that is like usually like driven to do it again. And it may not be horses. They may have a great love of horses, but I guarantee you that they will usually be desiring to be around the animals again, and a lot of times, like, they'll be driven to do something around them. I have a friend who literally mucks out stalls for free. So it's kind of like, she's like, as long as the horse is in there, I'm happy. And so that was her life. This life, she lives in town and can't afford a horse at this point in her life, and so that's what she does to kind of like do something else, to kind of muck out those stalls and kind of be around the animals. And she has a couple of different stables that she does it for whenever she has the opportunity. Let's see. A lot of times I think it's interesting, like 16, 17, 1800s, I will see people that usually had a lot of kids, because back then there wasn't any prevention in having kids, and so I will say that that's usually something that comes in pretty strong, where they'll like, I want 1 or 2 kids and that's it, or I just want 1 child, I don't want any more. You'll get a lot of those. And then sometimes if they had a lot of during that same time frame, they would also have a lot of kids that were stillborn, or passed shortly after birth, or, you know what I'm saying, died of an illness. And so people that have had children that have died really, really young of an illness or something like that, they are the ones that are usually pushing to have more kids. I want to have more kids. I want, not to replace the kids, but it's like that they had a, you know what I'm saying, like they loved kids, and so they wanted just more kids. I wanted to be more around more kids, and they almost kind of weirdly always like the chaos of a family. I know, and it's because it's like, this is what is happening and what I love. I thank you so much for joining me today, and I know that we'll be talking again soon.